नमस्ते। इस सत्र में आप सबका स्वागत है। I will start off by saying that we have had amazing sessions which have covered so many issues related to the continuing Kurukshetra that is going on, which is a part of life of every society and every country, and certainly ours. And also related to the arts and sciences and media and everything else. It's been very educative, of course. One's not been able to attend all of these sessions, but I've been told that they will all be on YouTube in a couple of weeks, so that the ones we have missed, we would be able to watch them. Before that, I must also say that all the great work that the organizers have done and the volunteers have done, we are very, very grateful. We're very grateful. Now, this particular session deals with the larger picture. We have a lot of challenges right now, as we have heard in the various sessions. But what about the larger picture? And the larger picture is captured by this idea of the glory of the past, the pain of the present. We are certainly going through, hopefully, growing pains and pains which lead to a new birth, and the dream of the future. And in order to sort of get started on that, I am going to begin with Swami Vivekananda himself, who 3 years after he came to Chicago in 1896, I'm sorry, he was invited to a dinner by the greatest actress of those times. It was a French woman named Sarah Bernhardt, who was visiting New York City. And at that time, the most famous scientist was Nikola Tesla. So she wanted Swami Vivekananda and Nikola Tesla to come together. And we have record of all of that through the letters that they wrote after that. And it so happened that Swami Vivekananda told Nikola Tesla that, look, the next thing that needs to be done in order to both establish Vedic science and also make for the next advance in physics, as was known at that time, is to find an equation which will connect energy and mass. So this is, as we know, 5 years prior to the discovery of that equation, the most famous equation of all time, energy is equal to mass into c squared. So Swami Vivekananda played a very fundamental role. And now, of course, there is a claim that Nikola Tesla was not able to discover it himself, but he knew the then wife of Albert Einstein, and maybe there was an indirect influence, but we don't know. You know, that's all speculation. Now, before we proceed, let me talk about our panel. We have very, very distinguished people, people that are legendary. First of all, Sonal Mansingh. Please come to the stage. Dr. Nagaswamy. And Mohandas Paiji. Let me set the stage for this panel. My own work and the work of many other people in the last 40 or 50 years has made about a great change in our understanding of what India is. And I'm just going to give you a few snippets of that. The claim can be made that what is the most astonishing and great about a modern world is to a great extent based on foundations that are Indian or that are Vedic or Hindu, whatever term you might want to use there. So the very first snippet that I'm going to mention is the number 108. As we all know, this number is fundamental to Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh culture, right? We have 108 pilgrimages. We have 108 beats in the Japamala, right? So the first surprising and amazing piece of information that all of you may not be aware of is that the Vedic rishis knew that the sun and the moon are 108 times their respective diameter from the earth, which is why their size looking from the earth is about the same, which is why you have eclipses. And modern science has also shown that the diameter of the sun is 108 times the diameter of the earth. There's this very amazing thing. And the very idea of the Japamala is to make a symbolic journey from the earth, which is your body, to the inner lamp of consciousness, which is the inner sun. So there's a lot of this stuff, or in Ayurveda, you have 107 marmas. If you have 108 pieces, there will be 107 weak spots or marmas. So there's a lot of connection there, and this all is to address the point that there is nothing random about who we are, that the outer and the inner, the above and the below, the Pind and the Brahmand are connected. So this is what it's all about. Now, even in the architecture of the Vedic temple, the distance from the doorway to the Garbhagriha was 108 units, and the perimeter was 360 units to address this whole question of Rit, or the law, the cosmic law which is represented in the architecture of the temple. So this is one thing. But this is all related to the past, and a couple of other things about the past are, of course, Panini's grammar, as we all know, which represents Sanskrit language in 4,000 rules, and it's in a form which is like a computer program. So now historians of science say that really the true father of computer science should be considered Panini, Dakshiputra Panini, right? So this is an amazing thing. But more recently, it's also come to light that the other aspect to modern life, which is changing everything, are machines, computers. And the origins of computers are normally seen to the mid-19th century. There were three British mathematicians by name Boole, De Morgan, and Babbage. And normally Babbage is considered the father of the digital computer. Now, Boole's own wife, Mary Boole, wrote a very famous essay. She claimed, this is in 1901, she claimed that these three were instructed or learned from George Everest. George Everest is the guy after whom the Mount Everest is named, who was the Surveyor General in India for many, many years, who had learned from Indian scholars. And Mary Boole said that the mathematical logic which was used by these people was actually based on Nyaya and Navya Nyaya that George Everest had learned from India, of which he became the interlocutor to his disciples in England. So that is another thing which is not so very widely known. But what about now? This is all the past, which is wonderful. Past is great to be strengthened, to have faith in oneself. But what about the future? So that is the whole question. Last year, the scientific administration in the US organized a whole series of week-long workshops for 30-odd people, some of the leading physicists, neuroscientists, philosophers and computer scientists at different places in the US and in Cambridge, UK. And I was one of those guys. And the whole question was, here humanity is entering an unprecedented era in its history. And this is the era of machines. This is the era of computers. So the question is, what is going to happen to computers? Will computers eventually become conscious? So we all met at many, many different places, very intensive discussions. And at the end of it all, two ideas emerged. And both those ideas are Indian ideas. Half the people, and I was the only Indian, they were all Americans and Europeans, half the people thought that machines will eventually become conscious, and these were the people who were informed by perhaps the Buddhist view from Shunyata, that perhaps you'll have machines which will become conscious. And the other half, to which party I belonged, said that no, machines will never become conscious. Machines will always have something missing. Now, as to what that might be, because the question could be asked, why is it, since the brain is also a machine, why is it that machines will not become conscious like brains are? And that is a very complicated question related to quantum mechanics, because machines are not governed by quantum mechanics, while brains, the underlying physical phenomena is quantum mechanics. And so some of us feel that, or maybe half the people we don't know amongst the scientific community, that machines will not become conscious. But all of us were agreed that machines will be able to do all that human beings do. And therefore, what we are all entering is a very unprecedented and probably a dangerous time in the history of mankind. But if there is something more to consciousness than just computation, which is what I believe indeed is true, and which is proven by stories such as that of Ramanujan, the great mathematician, who, when he would wake up, would say that the goddess Namagiri, in his sleep, gave him such and such equation. And all the work that he produced had no relationship to the mathematics of its time. Or we have many other episodes related to creative people who say that the idea related to that creative act came to them spontaneously. And so all of that does point to the fact, if one were to accept that there is something more, which is what consciousness science is all about, where the only guidance that mankind can receive is from our tradition, from the Vedas. Because what are Vedas about? Vedas are about Atma Vidya. They are about consciousness. So I think the next 100 years, or maybe next a long, long time, would all be a Indian or Vedic century, certainly this century, because we the smartest people are agreed that mankind is at that inflection point, very close to that inflection point. And one of the most dangerous things that can happen is that human beings would be quite willing to cede decision-making to machines. And that is happening to a certain extent. Even those people who believe that machines are in some sense deficient are quite agreed to letting machines decide for us. And in some sense, what is happening in Europe, where there is a bureaucracy which is deciding what is good for everybody, and what is happening elsewhere in the political system is a cry for help. People think that their control over events and their destinies is slipping away. So they want something, and they're not necessarily picking the right people because they don't know what is to be done. So with this, let me stop with just one concluding statement, that the very foundation of quantum mechanics, which is the deepest scientific theory there is, on which is based chemistry, which is the basis of biology, and which is also the basis of computers, was discovered, one of the co-discoverers or creators of it was the Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger. And Schrödinger, in his own autobiography, says that the fundamental idea behind quantum mechanics, which is the idea of superposition, came to him from the Upanishads. The Mahavakya, I am Atma Brahma, was the idea that you need something which is a superposition of all possibilities. That is the fundamental idea of quantum mechanics. So we have a lot to be proud of. A lot of what is now considered, mainstream science, etc., is based on our Vedic ideas. And I am quite convinced that the direction that science will take, or even the development of society, would be guided by these ideas, because these ideas are more than just us as bodies. They connect us to the infinite. Thank you.